Congratulations on an amazing accomplishment.
This is not going to play well.
Which, by the way, Francis,
come on.
Can you please come talk to us? Like,
essentially, I'm in the lineage of that.
Yeah, we all are.
Then the rest.
Not no more.
Ain't no more. So, Jesus.
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Patros Podcast as we journey to embrace healthy masculinity. My name is Allan. Obviously, Jeff is right here with us.
Hey.
And Josh is back, folks.
All right.
We should have a crowd, but we don't. We have a wall.
You need a...
we have a crowd.
You need a soundboard where you just...
I'll just add that. We could just add it.
Add that in later.
All right, sounds good. Well, we are going to be covering a nice topic. I think we already prefaced some of this stuff for you guys. What are we covering today?
We're into a new series.
What is it?
Yeah, I don't think we've ever done a series before.
We have not.
And so we're excited to start this series on theology for regular dudes and why it is necessary. And just trying to keep it 100 with everyone so that it's like just normal guys talking. Now, everybody here has kind of a theological bent or whatever, but I think that we all live normal lives. So it's not like no one's here as a pastor, I guess is the point.
Yes.
And yet we still care about theology. But before we do that, there's a hot take that I want to
For the ladies present today, congratulations on an amazing accomplishment. You should be proud of all that you have achieved to this point in your young lives. I want to speak directly to you briefly because I think it is you, the women, who have had the most diabolical lies told to you. How many of you are sitting here now, about to cross this stage, and are thinking about all the promotions and titles you are going to get in your career? Some of you may go on to lead successful careers in the world, but I would venture to guess that the majority of you are most excited about your marriage and the children you will bring into this world. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation.
Let's go do something.
I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school
ice cream and hang out
would convert to the faith, become my wife,
what?
and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
So I actually found that, and it was on this lady that I follow on Twitter, and she was, she's Christian, very outspoken though.
Is that Isabel?
No.
Oh.
Good guess though.
Oh no, his daughter's name's Isabel.
Anyway, she was just hammering this guy, and so I'm like. So when I listened to it, what is your hot take? You listened to it.
Yeah.
What was your immediate take? Forget the hammering that I just said about this woman. You just listen to that. What is your hot take?
Amen.
The baby cried at the perfect spot.
Yeah.
That was my first thought. Like he said something about being a wife and children, and then the baby cried. I was like,
What's my actual opinion about what he said?
Yeah, like what he said. Did you? Yeah. What did?
I think it resonated with the fact that there's a lot of content that I've at least consumed where there's this common theme with women, professional women, where later on in their profession, once they've gained the accolades, the success, the career, kind of coming to terms with nothing beats building my home and my family. And not in the way that a lot of media tries to position it where it's like men are over you, but just the fact of, no, this is what my body was literally designed to do. This is what I'm gifted at. I'm smart enough to go succeed in the professional world, of course. Like women kill it in the professional world because of a lot of their talents. But that there is a different type of gift to reproducing the next generation and to upbringing them in the home. So I think that everything that he said was pretty spot on. I could see why people would just take it how they did, but I don't think he was saying anything that was out of pocket either.
Okay. What do you think?
Yeah. When you said to me, my first thought was, there are three people in my life that work harder than anybody I know. My dad, my mother-in-law, and my wife. And my wife is like, she just has such a strong work ethic. But if I were to come to her and say, hey, I had a conversation with my generous, gracious boss, and he gave me a significant pay increase, like, you can stay home, you don't have to work, like, she would love that. Like, that would be like, because I, like, not because she's lazy, not because she doesn't want to work hard, but because, like, she would, like, one of the things that I feel like we've been praying for, like, for our kids. I was a youth pastor for like 10 years. And one of the things that was like just burned on my heart is that like we would build a relationship with our children to the point where God would like prolong our influence over them into like their teenage years. Cause you get to that teenage rebellious time. And so like, if that were like for her to have more of that at home, like she wouldn't like balk at that at all. Because I think like that's the way we were created. We're created to be a family. Motherhood, giving birth, nursing, nurturing, all the things. Like, I didn't think he was being condescending in any way. Like, people probably got really upset about the word vocation. I'd imagine as if like that's what women are only qualified to do. I don't think like he was going at it from that take. I think it was like it's the most beautiful thing when you have a wife or a mother who's like totally committed to the well-being of their family. Like there's a higher calling than being a dad or being a mom. So.
So when I first listened to it, I thought, I just kind of paused. I was like, I think I agree with everything. And this is not going to play well.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, of course.
And so then I thought, was it wise to say it? It all was probably okay, but this was at a commencement speech.
Yep.
Where like you just went to school so that you could have this degree and then go into the world. And then he goes, go be a homemaker.
Go be a homemaker.
So I'm like, I also agree with you that I think, and I think he said something about homemaking being a wonderful thing, and don't believe the lie. I think that was all really good because it is a lie. And I think the spirit of what he was saying was, don't believe the lie the culture is going to tell you that it's, you're worthless if you are a stay-at-home mom, or you're not being all you can be if you don't go to the workplace. So I think that was the spirit, I think. Yeah. But I questioned the place. And then there was a comment that he said where he made it kind of sound like his wife, when his wife said, my life began when I became, a homemaker maybe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the way that it was phrased is almost like that's how every woman should feel. And I thought that's the one thing that went wrong.
Yeah.
In the little.
Well, he gave a descriptive thing of what his wife said. And some people
which
probably
been fine for
read
her,
it as prescriptive, where he's telling them that that's how they should feel.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I sent this to several women this morning. I was just curious to get takes. And these are Christian women. So the first one was WTF. I'm sure she meant like frick. What the frick?
Yeah. What the father?
Yeah. It's just the way it's stated. I'm glad his wife is super fulfilled with her life. But the context and way he's saying it is such a miss. Quote, he's successful because she's at home. Okay, congrats. So interesting response.
Yeah.
Because the three of us were like, it was basically okay.
Yeah.
And her response was like, WTF.
Yeah.
So I said, let me ask you this. If his wife delivered the same message, like let's say she's on the same page and she delivered the same message, does it hit more or is it still a miss? And she said, if his wife said it, then it is different, but the context is still odd to me. You're speaking to a room of women who are launching their working careers, and then you're telling them about being a homemaker. The message is, congrats on pursuing the wrong thing. Your real fulfillment is not having a career. So I thought that's helpful. This is a Christian woman. I'm not even saying this Christian woman is right, by the way, but at least was helpful in understanding a context. So
because he could have came at it like, all right, if you were dead set on giving that speech and including this part of that speech, like you could have came at it like, hey, don't allow your career to overtake your priority of your family. Like, and that might have been a little bit softer, but I don't know.
Well, like me and my wife have had this conversation because, her being in counseling, you run into every type of dynamic, right? And so you have women and this is obviously just with the rate of divorce in our country, or you have deaths that are not, foreseen. Sometimes women having a career is also just a buffer to what if. Like, what if I do die and you need to make some money until whatever other situation, we don't have enough life insurance, or, like there's so many things. And it's not, I don't believe women's end all be all is to make children. I think it's a huge part of it, the same way a huge part of being a man is to protect children and to protect women and to make children with women, right? Like that's literally, but there's women that can't have children. So what does that mean? Are they not fulfilling their God-given purpose? Not at all. That's not the message.
Choose to not have children or
yeah,
right? Like,
there's completely different scenarios. So we're not saying that the complete identity of a woman is founded in childbearing and child rearing, but it is a huge fulfillment to do that. To be able to rear a child into becoming someone that worships Jesus and becomes the man or woman that God's created them to be. I don't think that, it's maybe not helpful at a commencement speech to do that, but you're right. Like that whole message of saying, hey, you guys are going to go into your careers and you're probably going to kill it, but just know that it's okay that you don't have to give in to the fact that like career is the only thing for you.
Well, that's the one of the other gals, her first response to me was, I get what he's trying to say, but he did a terrible job delivering it, which was kind of the same thing that I was like, I don't really disagree with this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's the context. And then she said, it's also stupid to say that women's lives don't truly start until they become a homemaker, because there are plenty of women who have different callings. Or what if you don't find a husband, or what if you get divorced, or what if you can't have kids? So again, like it's like what you're saying before we come on, you're like, man, I'm fine. Then I get in front of the mic and I'm like, because it's permanent and it's out there. So I think when
people hold us to it,
they hold you to it. I think we need to be gracious with him.
Sure.
Yeah.
In as much as I think the spirit of what he was trying to say, although I did comment to my brother because I sent it to him, I'm like, well, he's also not acknowledging that many women work because they don't have. This guy is a NFL.
Yeah, he has money,
so he's got money.
I would say practically, like most of us, our wives have to work because like
say,
the context of how we live right now.
Right. There's a lot of women are working because they're NFL.
We only have one comma in our paycheck.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that there's that piece of it too. So I just it was helpful for me to get responses from women who I consider to be godly. And also, and these women were younger. And by younger, I mean like under 40, under 35, like kind of that. So it would be interesting. I should send it to my mom.
Yeah.
Say, hey, listen to this and give me your take.
Well, the thing is, it was easier for the older generation to stay at home because the percentage, like the ratio on what you made versus what cost of living was a lot closer.
Yeah, they bought a house for $50,000
and we're making 25,000. Yeah. Now, if you make 80 grand, you can't buy your starter home at 450 grand.
Well, not in the area we live.
Yeah. Well, and to say that, like,
then,
like if you equate, like, all right, then you have to fulfill your destiny or purpose of being a homemaker. Well, you just can't do that. Like, some people just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah. And there's ways to make it work. Sure, there's ways to make it happen. I know people that make it work.
Yeah. So anyway, I wasn't planning on talking about this morning, but it came up, and I was like, "Wow, there is a what I think was a well-intentioned kind of topic that I think missed the mark, but yet I still think on the whole it's true."
Yeah.
And so, segue to talk about something that I think we missed the mark on a lot, but is well-intentioned when we talk about would be the gospel. And particularly the question that we want to try to answer today. So I didn't plan on doing this either, but I'm going to bring this out just because it happened. So we do this show here in the friendly confines of a local church, and they had this in the front of just sitting there, a little placard, that's got these flyers, and so the front of it says, "What is the gospel?" So I'm like, you know what? We're talking about the gospel today. What do they say the gospel is? So it starts with, there truly is no more colossal of an inquiry that you could ever make. What is the gospel? The gospel begins with God. He is all that is perfect and lovely, holy and flawless. He alone is eternal, omnipotent, infinite, omniscient, immortal, and omnipresent. And so I've already read this to you guys, so you know where I'm going with this.
All the buzzwords.
All of that we would agree with. There's no one on this panel that's going, nope, I don't believe that God is omnipresent.
Yeah.
Right? However, if I'm putting myself in the position of somebody who is far from God, who doesn't know what the gospel is, who doesn't know what God is, who doesn't know Jesus, who doesn't know Christianity, and really all they may know is by pop cultural references that are typically denigrating.
Yeah.
And I read this.
Mm-hmm.
It's accurate, but am I interested in reading more?
Mm.
Maybe. But man, it seems like that seems like a lot of highfalutin. It sounds like it belongs in academia.
Yeah.
Even though it's true.
Yeah, especially like today, the topic is theology for regular dudes.
For regular dudes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you're a regular dude who reads this. What's the result?
Mm.
I don't know.
It was funny. So I just thought about this. Of course, I'm going to reference Francis Chan. Which, by the way, Francis,
Come on.
Can you please come talk to us? Like, I know that you said you want to. Well,
crush.
I can't say why you said that you won't come on an interview, but just come on.
But thank you for responding.
Thank
That
you
was
for
very
responding.
kind.
Yeah, and yes,
And also, you
I
should
would
still
love
come on.
for you to come on and have a conversation with us. But I remember a message where he talked about how we would hate to listen to Jesus preach. If the American Christian was sitting under Jesus' preaching, we would do away with it. We wouldn't want him to be our leader. And it was because he would preach in a way to confuse people to see who actually cared. And he would constantly say, you know, you like, what was it when he did the sermon where he talked about like the seeds, and he just explains like, yeah, some seed fall like this, and then it withers away or it grows, you know, and all confusing. And then just deuces, walks away.
Yeah.
And the disciples go and say like, you know, what did that mean? And so he preached in a way to confuse, but then said, you know, if you care, you will come and ask. Like, so many other people were just following him for the miracles and the entertainment and the show. And so I think no matter what, when you give the gospel, whether you do it perfectly or imperfectly, whether you are too eloquent or not eloquent enough, that the reality is that the Holy Spirit is at work, and that people that do want to hear and understand will ask more questions. So similar to how the guy doing the commencement speech imperfectly delivered, people that care to know truth aren't going to immediately just say like, oh, click off. They would then say, well, is there a deeper understanding of this context? And so in the same way, I think with the gospel is like when we first don't fully understand it, we at least, if the Holy Spirit's working in us, we would ask more questions.
But like 1 Corinthians 2:4, Paul says, my message and my preaching were not with wise and persuasive words.
Mm-hmm.
So he like threw out like there's like, I knew nothing among you except for Christ. He says, but with demonstration of the Spirit's power, so that your faith might not rest on human wisdom but God's. It's like, and this is not being critical of whoever authored that, but it's like even Paul, like, who sat under the feet of Gamaliel, or however you pronounce it. Like, even like the esteemed academic that he was like, we have to communicate the gospel in simplicity, because like if we go beyond that, like I think there's a little bit of like temptation to be prideful of like, hey, how, like even like doing something like this, how uniquely can I say this to like really catch people as a listener? Totally. But Paul's like, no, like it's just through the Spirit, it's just through the power of the Spirit.
Yeah,
so faith is in God.
I think what I'm saying is like, because I know when Paul says that, he constantly talks about like, I'm not coming in eloquence so that you understand this is the work of the gospel, or the Holy Spirit, but that sometimes even if somebody, because I've talked to guys that are like super high IQ, they don't know how to dumb stuff down, right? And they try. And I've asked some of them like, hey, can you try to dumb that down? And they're just still, they go down to like college senior level, like professor. And what I'm saying is that if someone speaks eloquently, not out of pride, but just because that's how they speak, that's not necessary. Like the simplicity of speaking or trying to speak in the dumbest way possible isn't gonna make the gospel more powerful, just the same as eloquence doesn't make the gospel more powerful, but that the gospel is powerful regardless of. Yeah. And I think that's the important thing of why Paul did it, was to show that it isn't eloquence that causes the gospel to be worthy, but that it's worthy on its own right.
All right, so we're throwing this word gospel around.
Yeah. So let's get down to it.
So let's define some terms. But before we do that, I think I wanted to anchor the discussion, because you hear, like, what does it mean to be saved? I think that is a genuine question.
Oh, yeah.
And for those who don't know, like, gospel and salvation would go hand in hand. So that's why we're using that term gospel. Gospel, the Gelion, what's the word? Gelion, I think good news. Anyway.
We keep looking off camera because Taylor's right here. He's hanging out. You'll see him on a podcast soon.
Evangelion, yeah. So
I've looked over at Taylor so many times.
The good news is that
Taylor, get on the whiteboard and write them down so we don't have to look at you. Sorry.
But I wanted to anchor our time in this text because I just think this is an interesting text about what does it mean to be saved? Because if we need to be saved, and that is an objective, truth about life, and we could argue maybe it's not an objective truth. What do I need to be saved from? Well, that's part of the story. Why do I need to be saved?
Yeah.
But so let me read this. This is going to be a familiar story for those who know the Bible. And if you have never read the Bible or you don't remember this story, just, you can just listen in. So it's from Luke 19. Jesus entered Jericho and was passing through it. Now a man named Zacchaeus was there, and he was a chief tax collector and was rich. Context, the tax collectors were like treasonists. They were Jews who had betrayed the Jewish people and had gone over to the Romans and were doing the dirty work of collecting all the taxes, and were always skimming off the top because the Romans say, hey, we want 20 coins, and they go, sure, and they'd take 50 coins, and
they were legal criminals
as long as they got there. So it's profitable stuff in first century Palestine. So not highly regarded individual. We would look at him as a crook. Like, we'd look at him today and go, that guy is a white-collar crime guy or a con artist or a thief or, something along those lines.
The IRS.
The IRS. I love that.
I didn't say it.
You're welcome here anytime, John.
We get shadow banned on YouTube.
Sorry.
Ron Paul.
You get 87,000 people knocking at your door.
So Zacchaeus was trying to get a look at Jesus, but being a short man, he could not see over the crowd, which is just funny. Shout out short people. So he ran ahead and climbed onto a sycamore tree, which is not a large tree, to see him. So he's just giving himself a boost because Jesus was going to pass by. And when Jesus came to that place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down quickly because I must stay at your house today. So he came down quickly. And welcomed Jesus joyfully. And when the people saw it, they all complained, he has gone in to be the guest of a man who is a sinner. So everybody knows this guy is a sinner. He's not a good dude. And whatever you want to context it, this is not a good man.
Yeah.
Right? But Zacchaeus stopped and said to the Lord, look, Lord, half of my possessions I now give to the poor. And if I've cheated anyone of anything, I'm going to pay him back 4 times as much. And Jesus says to him, today, and here's our word for the day, salvation has come to this household because he too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and save the lost. So Zacchaeus, being a sinner, really just wants to see Jesus. Like, he just has a curiosity, right? And so who initiates the conversation? Jesus. And he looks up and says, hey, come on down. I'm going to your house today. And so he must have thought, are you kidding me? Right? And goes in. And everyone is complaining, like, because why? At that time, in that context, only the rich were the righteous. Only the knowledgeable were the righteous. Only the ones with status were the righteous. The poor, the destitute, the criminal, like all of that. They were not worthy of salvation, right? And so Zacchaeus stopped and said to the Lord, look, half of my possessions I now give to the poor. If I cheated with them, I'll pay about 4 times. So there was a clear action, or declaration at least. Not really an action, but a declaration. And Jesus, in that declaration, Jesus says, salvation has come to his household. So I think that's really interesting that he says salvation has come. Now, he's God, but he's also man. He's God, he knows. But I wonder, just as a man, if he sees that declaration and there's some kind of earnestness to that, is he able to detect, wow, this man really is saved. And so what does that mean to be saved? And then what can we take from this action? And the reason I chose this story as our anchor text is because if you've grown up in the church, part of this text, you would say, see, there is a moment in time when you are saved, and, can you think back to that day, right? On the flip side, he didn't pray a sinner's prayer. He didn't, it really says nothing about his faith here. It says nothing about him acknowledging, Jesus' sacrificial system, his propitiation on the cross or anything like that. So I feel like it's a good story because it kind of hits to both sides of wherever you fall on the salvation issue. But I think we have complicated salvation. So, Josh, we brought you on because, having been a former pastor, I was on staff with Man Up. For those of you who don't know, works with our fathers, our fatherhood engagement program. But you've got a unique, I feel like, backdrop to this because of your history, being in the church and raised, but then also, just having been a pastor. So, you're the professional. If anybody should know what it means to be saved, it should be you.
It's way too much hype right now. What I say is not gospel today.
Unless it's the gospel.
Unless it's the gospel. So respond to that. And just, start us off with salvation. What is salvation? What are we talking about when I say, what does it mean to be saved?
No, I'm tracking with the background of things because I too grew up in a Southern Baptist context where.
Should we role play?
Yeah.
I'll be the non-believer.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm just playing.
We're on the 6th chorus of the hymn, and we're extending the invitation to walk down the aisle.
All right, ready?
And say the prayer, and then you're in. You did it. You performed the steps.
Yeah.
You walked the aisle. You said the prayer. But I think just in so many different areas of Scripture, we almost the simplicity of what we were taught as children, and there's almost a neglect of what's really happening. And for me, I want to read a really short verse out of Ephesians 2 that I think is applicable here. Ephesians 2, 21, 22, but mainly 22. It says, in him the whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in the Lord. And then verse 22 says, and in him you too are being built together to become a dwelling in which God lives by the Spirit. And so, when we think back to, for me, a lot of things that I this is where I'm at right now, of when I think about what God is doing and has done and wants to do, it goes all the way back to the very beginning of Genesis. In Genesis, he created man, woman, male, female, in his image. In the role of humans, we weren't designed to be sinful. We were designed to be representatives of God, his ambassadors to the earth. We were going to rule and reign. We're going to subdue, bring everything into conformity of God's purpose. And as we expand, we multiply, we grow population across the earth, we are God's representatives to the earth so that they would see us. And by seeing us, they would see God. And so when we sin, really what we're doing is we're marring what God intended us to be, who he created us to be. I love in the passage, and we don't talk about this verse a lot too, but it just kind of popped out as you're reading. It says, today salvation has come to this house because this man too is a son of Abraham. And Abraham, when we talk about the beginning of he believed God and was credited to him as righteous. There was this process of faith of all right, with Abraham up to this point, Adam and Eve removed from God's presence. They aligned with the evil one in the very beginning. They joined forces with him rather than with God. And then they were removed from his presence, cut off, estranged from God, disconnected. Then it comes along Noah, and then they flood the whole earth because I think Genesis 6 says that every inclination of the heart, they were like increasing in evil. And then Abraham's the guy. All right, now this is where I want to start. And so all right, if we're going to build a people, if I'm going to build out, and this isn't Israel yet, this is just Abraham. If I'm going to build a people who are going to show the world who I am, I'm going to do it with Abraham. And he was to grow in godliness and trust and obey and all the things. And I think as we think about salvation, it really is Ephesians 1, it says, in him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins, in accordance with the riches of God's grace. He's redeeming us back to that purpose of we are to be ruling on the earth, reigning on the earth as God's people, showing people who God is. And there's a very specific purpose in that. And salvation is saying, hey, he looks at Zacchaeus and is he gets it now. He understands he's been cheating people, stealing from people. He's been manipulating the system. He's probably got friends with the Israelites and he's got friends with the Romans, and he's playing both sides, and he's dipping his finger in this side and over here, and he's just making a mess of who he was created to be. And then he sees a change in heart. He's now he gets it. Now he understands there's a greater purpose to being a son of Abraham, to being a child of God, really. And now salvation is apparent in this guy's life because now he's understanding he's created for so much more than this, just fill his own greed. It's there's this salvation of redeeming that original image of what God created us to be. And I know I'm sure there'll be more, but the whole justification, all the things, there's more to the topic, but I just big picture wise, I feel that when we're talking about salvation, God is saving his creation to be what he originally intended it to be. And,
So with salvation, then the short answer would be you use the term redemption in that. So being redeemed, that is, I feel kind of a Bible word. Sure. I don't know if a lot of people really redeem
your rewards.
I guess redeem my rewards.
Starbucks.
Yeah. So
gold member.
That's really the only way that I'm thinking about the word redemption.
Sure.
So can you? What does that mean for modern
regular dudes? Yeah, I think redemption really is a word for if you were enslaved and then you were bought out of slavery, right? That might be a way of us of trying to understand what's happening. You fell in debt to me, and then because you're indebted to me, you don't have the money to pay me back. You're now my servant, my bond servant, my slave, however you want to describe it. And then someone comes along and says, I'll buy out his debt. I'll set him free. He's redeeming you out of your debt to me so that you can go on and be yourself. You don't have, you don't belong to anyone but yourself now.
Do y'all want to hear more of that conversation? Well, you can by becoming a Patros subscriber. You'll get exclusive member-only content. Just go to the link in the description or go to the Patros website.
Yeah, and when you become a subscriber, what you're telling us is that you enjoy this content and you want to hear more of it. So every dollar that you give helps us do just that.
So thank you again for listening as we just together go on this journey of embracing healthy masculinity.